Good time today on the program. Today's the Monday edition of Real Talk with Keith Smith.
There you go.
We're going to catch up on the weekend that was. We're going to see how we're going to catch up on the weekend that was from a transactional standpoint.
Sure.
We had some activity.
Just sitting here.
Yeah.
This morning it was 102 went pending. 7 back. We're at 105. So just in the last 30 minutes, we put on 3 more transactions.
Under contract.
On the contract, yeah.
Went pending. So inventory is even tighter.
We're at 67.
65 active, right?
67. No,
Oh, 67.
67. Let me see. Hold on a second.
No, back on the market is 12.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I ran these numbers this morning and like an hour ago, and just between that, we're already changing. I'm looking at live over here. So we went from 65 to 67, and pendings just this morning went from 102 to 105. But what's interesting, we are 28% up in contracts this time last week. This time last week.
And pendings.
That's pendings.
Yeah.
That's in contracts, yeah.
Wow.
And the inventory, what's coming on, we're under 17% week over week. So, inventory's not getting better, but, we've been talking about the market being up-tempo for a while.
That's an example right there.
There you go.
Judah Wickower, the director, J-Dubs. Judah B. Wickower. We're ready to rock and roll when you're ready there. Good Monday morning, guys. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us. A pleasure to connect with you guys through the I Love Seville network. The Ides of March upon us.
Ooh.
St. Patty's Day at the end of the week. March Madness starts Thursday. The Masters around the corner. A lot of activity, and it's not just in life, sports, and events. A lot of activity in real estate as well. On that note, Judah Wickower, let's welcome the star of the show, Keith Smith, to the program. A lot of activity in real estate, my friend.
I'm a little slow I'm a little slower than normal this morning. I'm not talking about my mental ability. I'm talking about my physical ability. This was, we put in 2 back-to-back 12-hour days. Haven't done that in a while, on the weekends anyway. So, sales are up. I mean, as far as pendings go, we were just looking at week over week. This same week, last week, we're up 28% in volume of sales. In other words, homes that went under contract, but we're down 17% on the number of homes coming on the market. And it was interesting. I took a look at, because somebody taught me how to take pictures of this and record all this
on your iPhone. JB, what's up, buddy? John Blair.
And it's interesting. So we've been doing this so long, I can go back and look at stuff. So I went back to 2021, the same week in 2021, and the pending in the same week in 2021 was 96 versus 102, which now just jumped up to 105 as we've been sitting here on that end of it. So, that's roughly, that's a pretty big jump in here. But the pendings are just ridiculous. The actives. The actives in 21 were 87, and the actives right now are 65. So that's like a 30. If my math is right, that's a 30%. A negative in pending in active, so we're off compared to 21 by roughly 30%. But the pendings are kind of flat, right? 21 there was 96, 22 103. This last week in this week in 23 102. To me, those are pretty darn close.
So here's what he's saying. We're going to put this in layman's terminology here.
And wake up.
There's not much inventory on the market. So right now there's 67 units in the car footprint for sale. 67.
Yeah, our number from an hour ago was 65. Now it's 67.
So there's 67, right?
That's right.
Of the 67, to put it in perspective, last week, 7 days ago, at this time, there was, 89?
No, last week was 76.
Well, plus back on the market.
Okay, yeah. Well,
89.
yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay. And this time last year, there was, good Lord, 137
Yeah.
on the market.
Yeah.
So over the course of 1 year, this time last year in 2022, you had 137 units for sale.
Between new and what came back on.
Inventory on the market,
There you go.
137 units.
Homes you can buy.
Right now you have 77 people.
Yeah.
77.
But the tempo of buying, in other words, the tempo of homes going under contract is pretty constant.
Well, I
for
mean,
the
a
last 3
perfect
years.
example of this is year over year, the pendings, these are homes going under contract.
Yeah.
This week, 102 under contract. Same time last year,
was 103.
103.
So that's flat.
So that, what does that tell you? That tells you that if you list a home and it's priced right, conditions are good, people on the other side matter.
No. God, Lord.
Give it to me. You rattle it off so quickly.
You want me to do it slowly?
Yeah, no, just, yes, go a little slower this time. I'll remember it if you go a little slower.
It's okay. My coffee hasn't kicked in and I'm a little wore out.
Price right.
No.
No?
No.
Conditions? No. Location.
There you go.
Location.
Location. Judah, help me out here, brother. Location.
Okay, let's see if Judah's got the second one. Judah, do you got the second one? Okay. Location, price right.
Well,
Price
hold it.
right.
Time out here. So if my co-host, my partner in crime here, is not paying attention to
I could get them all, just not in the order you prefer.
Yeah. Well, the order matters.
Okay, so
right?
location.
The order matters. It's
Okay.
it's location. Price.
Price right. Okay.
Price.
Yeah. Conditions.
Features.
Okay.
Condition.
Okay.
Timing.
Okay.
And
And
who's-
people on the other side matter. Person on the other side. I'm going to get myself into trouble saying that. I'm being Keith Smith right now. The person on the other side matters.
Thank you for very much for getting my blood pumping this morning, because I am dragging. That, at a certain age, that 1 extra hour makes a difference. And man, it was a long weekend. It was a good weekend. We put a lot of homes on the contract, and
It's great. Congratulations.
yeah. Put listings on Friday, sold them on Sunday. So
So you continue to say rates aren't
well,
a factor here.
that's
That's what you're saying.
that's what I'm saying
Yeah.
here, right?
That's what you're saying. The numbers back it up.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying here, and what I mean by flat 21, 22, 23. Again, there's a little bit of a difference between 96 and 102, but percentage-wise, it's pretty narrow. To me, 96, 103 and 102, 96 and 21, 103 and 22, and 102 this last week. It's flat as flat can be, but man, the inventory is like plummeting down, and we'll kind of dig into this a little bit more on Wednesday with Scott. But Scott Morris with Ross Mortgage, on that end of it. But interest rates aren't mattering. I mean, this time last year, I didn't get a chance to look at it this morning, but somebody who's smarter than me can go ahead and do that. This time last year, mortgage rates, I don't think started that.
This time last year, I'd say they were in the threes, high threes.
Yeah, I think it was closer to April when the doubling.
Yeah, when they started jumping.
Started
Yeah.
happening. So we were at 103 contracts at, let's call it 3%, somewhere between 3 and 4%, somewhere in that range, and we're at 102 this
At basically 6.5 to 7%.
I think some of it. So I think these contracts may have caught the tail end of over 7 too. So let's call it 7.
7%.
And call it 4. That's a 3
Three.
point.
That's a huge delta.
That's a 3 point. That's a roughly doubling
That's massive.
in Smith math.
That's a massive delta, to your point.
But the thing is it's not slowing the buyer down. And an example of that, I sent you guys something over the weekend. We were, I guess, this was 2 Mondays ago. We were talking about the shootings, right?
Yeah.
And so I've been tracking Fightful and 10th and Page, and they just had a home go on the market.
5 plus.
5+ on the market 9 days. So
Not a large home either.
it is not a large home, but it's kind of in this area, about a smack in the middle of it. It was interesting. I was looking up the walk score on that, and that had a walk score of 98, which is super high.
Phenomenal walk score. Yeah, that's why the neighborhood has potential.
Absolutely. You can walk to almost anything over there. But look, so interest, and I don't know what all this means, right? I just know what the numbers are. Interest rates are impacting our marketplace. Let's say the local news, let's call it that, isn't impacting the buyers writing contracts. So, if you've got something to sell and you are at that point right now, don't think that there isn't buyers out there to buy. This pool that we talk about all the time is still at 20 feet deep, right? This buyer pool is not decreasing. Otherwise, we would see, numbers substantially lower than 2021. I mean, just think about this. 2021, this week, we had less sales than this previous 7 days. Not by a lot, right? A handful on it. But it was less. So, my God, if it's in the right location, right prices, right features, right condition, now's the time. That's why the order is important, right? So if you catch the 4, is it now the right time to do this? And it is the right time. It's the right time. It's also the right time to buy, clearly, because people are buying like crazy.
Well said. That's a sizzle reel. Mark that. Judah Wickhauer. That was fantastic. I didn't give you a heads up this time. I was like, this man's grooving and moving. Let's leave him alone. Neil Williamson, we'll get to your comment here in a matter of moments. Welcome to the show, Bill McChesney.
This whole I have to stop for a second.
Yes.
This mustache thing is getting out of control.
Oh.
It is totally getting out of control, and somebody's going to get hurt before it's all over.
Well, put it in perspective. What's getting out of control?
I now have people calling me and texting me about this whole Neil shaving it off live.
Neil is going to shave it off live.
No, I've never. Neil is an honorable man. I never committed to him shaving it off.
I think we have done that.
I need the video proof. We need to go back to the tape on that.
Neil says, is there any increase on supply on the horizon? No. The answer is no. The answer is no.
Yes, and maybe no.
No.
Yes.
The answer. Okay. Where's the supply going to come?
So I think in his county, in Greene County, we've been talking about this forever, right? We had Jim Friedel on. There's about 1,800 homes in the pipeline. But
we're a ways away from that.
But the term is near future, right?
Okay.
I think once I lose my mustache and once the new zoning ordinances, the rewrites are done.
You're talking about upzoning. Talking about upzoning now.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about zoning rewrites. Okay. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But we'll call it upzoning for the sake of a talk show.
That's what it's called.
Yeah. Those homes, whichever they might be, that product is years out.
Yeah.
So this is not getting any better. I don't know, who did we have on the show that we asked the question that if interest rates doubled, would that impact this pace?
It was Scott, and Scott said it'd have to get to double digits. He says it would not have an impact until double digits.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, we're helping. I've been continue to say this. We're helping our daughter and son-in-law in Richmond, and we're in the middle of another 30-unit bid, a 30 contract bid for a $500,000 home. And we'll see how it goes. We're putting our best foot forward, which kind of makes me segue into what we're trying to do on the 22nd. And we kind of have to live come up with a name for the show on the 22nd. But what we're going to do on the 22nd is we're going to have a rotating cast of characters in this chair over here. We'll have Scott to the right of me and then that chair. And what we're going to be talking about is how to win in today's market, how to win in a market where we just went up 28% from 1 week to the next in contracts, and we're staying flat on inventory, and I suspect this inventory is going to stay flat for quite a while, years I would almost suspect going out. So how do we win? What skills and what little house hacks that one needs to do to try to put you in a better position. So we're going to have an appraiser. We're going to have Woody Fincham in here from that perspective. We're going to have a home inspector, because one of the things we're doing now, particularly in some of the recent showings I've been doing, I'm a little bit of a unique character, because I hold a couple of different licenses, so I see things from a builder's perspective. But we're also bringing home inspectors in when we start looking at houses now. That is back into doing it. So because the key here is to price it right, minimize your contingencies as best as you can. In other words, make the offer right. And the real key is communicating with the other side. That's why that sixth one is so important.
Yeah.
On that end.
Ray Cadell, watching the program. I believe interest rates under 10% only change who is buying what.
Yeah. Well, that's
not stopping the market in any way.
Yeah.
I've been watching this for 35 plus years with interest rates 19% and down. He also says 10% seems to have some sort of psychological barrier.
Well, that's what Scott said, right? A double digit is a psychological kind of thing. But Ray's right. I mean, my first house was 18%, right?
Does the run on the banks that we've had recently have any impact on things?
Yeah, so that's
Silicon Valley Bank, end of last week. First Republic Bank, a run on the bank right now, literally as we speak, as markets open at 9:30 East Coast time. I saw down 60%. First Republic dropped 60%, literally the lead of CNBC right now. Charles Schwab, that bank is headed for the worst day ever. Bank of America was down in pre-market trading. Is this run on banks a sign to what's to come?
That's a really great question. Yona and I were talking about that on the way in. And I have not had an opportunity to really dig too deep into it. Literally, we were running, wide open, two different directions. So not only was I working 2 12-hour days, Yona was working 2 12-hour days. So we really haven't had a chance to dig into it. I know this much. I've been doing it long enough, and I love Ray's perspective on this. With housing in particular, it always seems to go west to east. Right? When things start getting a little goofy out in the western states, it tends to migrate to the east. Have no rationale why. I just know I lived it the last time in the time of great unpleasantness that, you started seeing things in California and all that kind of stuff going south first, and it kind of worked its way across to the eastern seaboard. That's very macro in it. Look, I don't know how that's going to impact the housing market. I think it's going to impact the people that are part of it. But I also thought I read, isn't the SCC, it's not the SCC, FDIC making these folks whole?
Yeah, they're
or is that up to a certain dollar amount, though?
Essentially back in the banks. I mean, saving these banks, essentially what's happening.
Now, that question is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, here's the question that I have.
I wasn't a fan the last time around.
They're bailing out the banks. These banks are getting bailed out by the federal government. This is the question I have. If we have Silicon Valley Bank, literally a run at SVB last week, and now we have a run at First Republic. First Republic, Jude, are you watching this? First Republic is down 60% right now. In fact, First Republic is down 64%. Bank of America's down. All the major banks are down right now. Charles Schwab heading for his worst day in the history of the company.
So the question is this a flu that's going to go across the complete banking industry? Is that the concern? Is that the question?
My concern is this. Charles Schwab's down 10% now. Key Corp down 5 and change. PacWest down 7. My concern is this. How does this influence the Fed with rate hikes? If banks are collapsing, at least a couple of them, and they are, and the banks that are collapsing are needing a bailout,
so my first question is,
how can the Fed continue to accelerate with rates?
So I have not read into this enough to talk too intelligently about it, so I'm going to rely on you guys a lot on that. So my first question is going to be, why are they failing? Right?
Well, people made a run on them. They took it out more money than deposits.
I got it. But why is that happening?
Earlier in the week, some data points from Silicon Valley Bank were concerning. And midweek, I think it was Wednesday, those data points were released. And as those data points were released, depositors said, good Lord, get my money out of here.
Got it. Sounds like 29 all over again.
I mean,
but But the question is was it specific to these type of lending institutions, the way that they conduct their business, right? Or is this just a flu that's starting out in California or out west? Because these are mostly western states, except for, did you not say?
First, let me see where First Republic is based out of.
No, but-
SVB is a California bank.
We know that.
Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah.
This is a point of something to follow.
Yeah, so without a doubt, I just haven't read in on it enough to kind of to catch up on it. But my first question is why is it happening, right? And the other thing is my God,
First Republic is headquartered in California.
got it. So
Yeah,
Signature?
that's the third one, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when you say went down,
And you pull the mic over there if you could, please, sir, so folks can hear you, because only Keith and I heard you say that, and we'd love to hear, for the viewers and listeners to hear that. First Republic is headquartered in California. Judah's got a third one. Jump in here, J-Dubs.
Signature Bank went down as well.
so when you say went down, you mean these are people making a run on there?
State regulators closed
Shut
New
'em down.
York-based Signature Bank
Shut 'em
on
down, yeah.
Sunday.
You can't put any more deposits.
I mean,
in.
First Republic is getting additional liquidity from the Federal Reserve and J.P. Morgan Chase.
No,
You're-
J.P. Morgan is not California, that's for sure.
Billions of dollars that are bailing out these banks right now.
Yeah.
I mean, is this an indication?
They're not bailing out the banks though.
They're bailing out the folks that deposit the money in the banks.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
is-
which is essentially bailing out the bank. Because
No.
if the depositors don't have trust in the bank, the whole banking system collapses.
But they're not bailing out.
No, they're giving the money to the depositors. They're ensuring the money's there.
But
yeah,
is there
SVB is done.
SVB is finito.
Yeah.
First Republic is not yet.
Okay.
So do we have too many banks? Is that what this is? Is this a scenario?
I don't
like,
think we have too many banks. I think it's just
This
an
was, I know with SVB, what they did is they took a lot of their short-term, how do I put it? I think a lot of their
Look at the screen.
shorter-term money and put it into longer-term investments. And when people started trying to pull their money out, they didn't have an easy way to get.
Yeah,
those-
so they didn't have enough liquid assets.
Yeah.
Cash. They were putting it into development projects, so they
Yeah.
were putting it into
And so the question is, how widespread is that among
The
other
other
banks?
banks.
And then a follow-up question is, how does this impact the Fed with raising rates?
Well-
And then a follow-up question on top of all that is this: is this legitimately the first sign of the recession that's coming? Is this the recession? Is this
the one thing.
what's causing the recession?
Yeah.
Because this is pretty ominous right here.
Yeah, because we might be on the beginning of a recession up until this point, right? It's
It was extremely fragile until this point.
correct.
And now you literally have every media outlet in the country showing B-roll outside banks
Yeah.
and people trying to get their money.
So I guess B-roll is
Action footage,
got it.
B-roll.
So is this back to
Industry
my
term.
question? Is to your comment? Is this some banks that caught the flu, got COVID, and now they're out? And this starts to Judah's point. Then is this now a systemic problem
This is
going to spread through? Now, so if it
this
is,
is the beginning.
well, if it's limited to a certain number, then I think it's going to kind of work itself out. If it's something that every local bank or every banking institution is doing, as Judah outlined on that, then this potentially has a 2008 to 10 implication. And then what happens at that point?
I mean,
Right.
listen to these numbers here.
But let me finish this train of thought, if you don't mind. So my question would be for Scott is, I've got a buyer. This is a real estate show. Does this going on impact my ability to get a 30-year mortgage? Right? Now, I don't think it does at the moment, because most of them are FHA. They're mostly somehow or another federally backed mortgages and securities. And this is really a Scott Morris question. I probably should tag him and see if he can chime in and really add some. And if there's any other mortgage folks watching on it, but does what's happening with this quote unquote run on these institutions, does that migrate its way down to the 30-year mortgage or my ability to get a 30-year mortgage? That's the question.
It certainly did 08, 09, and 10.
But it was different, though. It was
those were mortgage-backed securities. The issue in 08, 9, and 10.
Yeah, that was very different. This was all, frankly, the regulators not watching, and the banks. And to Judah's point, it was everybody was doing it on this thing. I describe it as the cookie jar kind of thing, which I've done before, where the feds let banks take cookies out of the cookie jar and weren't really watching it this much. This is something different. This is people trying to pull cash out of the bank.
San Francisco's First Republic Bank is down 65% today after dropping 33% last week. PacWest Bancorp dropped 42%. Western Alliance lost more than 70%. National banks, Bank of America slipped 6%. Charles Schwab tumbled 18%.
So that is their valuation of the stock market, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, the question is this impacting these, my clients, the buyers out there, this 20-foot pool we've been talking about, does this impact your ability to get a loan or not? 08, 09, it did, right? 08, 09, it was all tied to real estate. Again, I'm just reading, I'm learning this live here. This feels like I have no confidence in this bank and I want to pull my cash out. I just don't.
Michael Plecker, mortgage-backed securities is Freddie and Fannie.
Yeah.
They do those every day. This is not a mortgage-backed securities issue.
Thank you.
Jason Howard, are people going to panic in the way they did when the gasoline pipeline went down, when we ran out of gas because everyone panicked and filled the tank every day?
That's a great
Are we
question.
seeing or going to see people going to their banks and trying to take all of their cash out?
Well, that's a 29 thing, right?
This comes back to what we've talked about on the I Love CVille show. I was talking about this with my father-in-law, my wife this morning, Judah. You got Airbnb, who's the largest room booking company in the world. Airbnb owns no rooms. You got Uber, who transports more people than any other car service in the world.
But don't own anything.
Airbnb Uber owns no cars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You got banks who evidently don't have money in their banks.
Yep.
It's called fractional reserve banking.
You got, that's called branding right there.
No.
No, I know it's called that, but that's called branding, what you just said right there. You got, we've turned in, it's everything we've been talking about on the show. We've turned into a subscription society, an economy.
Well, that's what's in this thing I hold in my hand, right? But that's why real estate is even more important, because it's a tangible thing. It reminds me of the conversation we had with one of the Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors, where we were trying to explain the difference between appreciation and depreciation. Vehicles depreciate, homes appreciate, real estate.
If you're on the Board of Supervisors and you don't know the difference between the appreciation and depreciation, you should not be on the Board of Supervisors. I'll go ahead and say that.
Okay.
I will go ahead and say that. Appreciation and depreciation I learned in the 7th grade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Legitimately.
Yeah. Well.
And if we're making
But those of
policy
us-
and tax decisions without knowing those terms, I'm concerned.
Those of us that are just have a barely over 3rd grade level, but we're working on it for you.
You know the difference between that,
Yeah, I know.
though. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a great topic to bat around, and maybe this is a thing to tackle on Friday and Wednesday. I just haven't read in enough of it. I could just tell you.
We
At
can
the
say this.
moment-
It's not good.
Well, of course it's not good.
It's not good.
Nothing, anything this large is not good. So it depends on people's cash positions at the moment. And we've been talking about this for a while. Most people don't have that much cash, right? They're not holding that much cash as they used to during the pandemic. But at the end of the day, My question would be to Michael or to Scott or to any other loan officer doing it, is this what's going on has a direct connection to my client's ability to get a 30-year mortgage? And if the answer to that is no, then I'm not so sure it's going to have a direct impact to real estate. If the answer is yes, there is some sort of linkage there, which again, I just don't know, then it could impact this number we're talking about here. It could impact inventory because, that's where people's assets are. Most of their cash is tied up into their home. So, is that's what's going on. Do you feel safe about your cash right now that you have in a bank?
I mean, my cash is in stocks, bonds, equities, CDs, and real estate.
Yeah.
I do not leave cash sitting in a bank at low yields.
Okay. So I have some cash, substantial, because when you go through 2008 and 2010, you've learned to have a bunch of cash reserves put away somewhere. So the question is Keith and Yona going to go home tonight and take all the cash that we've got in our banks, right? Because we spread them out on different banks, which is a lesson I learned in 2008, 2009. Never put all your money in one bank. On that end of it. So I'm going to go in and take all the cash that we've been saving since 2008 after the time of great unpleasantness and losing $17 million and losing all the cash that we had. Do I now go out and take that cash and put them in envelopes and stick them under Yona's side of the bed because she won't let me put them on my side of the bed?
No.
Yeah, so the question is am I going to do that now?
No, I don't. I hope you guys don't do that.
No. So the emotional question is this what's going on? As I said, the flu. All of a sudden, get to the point that Keith and Yona are sitting in their kitchen table and going, "Honey, we need to take our cash out because I'm worried about losing it." Now,
my hope, a positive about this, is we are less aggressive with rate hikes. Powell sees how fragile and vulnerable this economy is. The rate hikes are not as aggressive or hawkish. Credit card debt becomes more manageable for people because the rates aren't getting more expensive. The debt services are more expensive. That'll potentially, we know there's not a direct correlation, but anyone who follows this show knows that there's an indirect correlation. Maybe that'll help drop rates on 30-year and 15-year mortgages. I mean, how you disagree with this, Judah? I mean, I saw you grimace a little bit. How can Powell come in and continue to do this kind of hawkish increases?
So the one article I read in the New York Times was actually saying that.
What do you think there, Judah?
Quickly this morning.
You disagree. I know you disagree here.
Well,
this is often the bull, Judah, Keith. This is often the bull and the bear here.
Because they're walking a tightrope. I mean, obviously they're trying to get rid of inflation, and if they stop, it's not like inflation is just going to stall. It's going to come roaring back. So if they go too far in one direction, then banks start having runs and problems like this. If they take their foot off the gas on the
everything else becomes more
rate
expensive.
hikes,
everything becomes more expensive.
We're back at the beginning of all of this.
So, gentlemen, do you think this run on the banks are going to negatively impact inflation or positively impact inflation? I think it's neutral. But
I think this run on the banks is going to create fear.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And fear dampens economies because it keeps people from spending.
Yeah, sure.
It impacts consumer confidence. I hope this creates fear in Jerome Powell. I hope Powell sees how ridiculously close we are to a catastrophic recession. We are very, 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 very close. Very close. And I don't care what anyone says about the Central Virginia and Charlottesville economy being completely protected from everything that's going on because of UVA. We have, Judah's seen this. We're an advertising agency, a brand management company. We are interacting with 100 or so companies on a weekly basis. And these companies are contacting us. He can confirm this here, explaining how fragile their businesses are right now. We had a meeting, last week? We can't say who it was. And she was concerned, you know who I'm talking about, with everything. Labor, the cost of labor, customers not spending as much, everything. I mean, we're so fragile right now.
So,
and I'm curious in your thoughts on this here, because this is a silent guy with a lot of perspective to offer. A silent guy with a lot of perspective.
So we can look at spreadsheets and we can look at numbers and we can look at everything, but you're spot on. Emotions impact the economy more than spreadsheets and balance and pluses and minuses. If people are not, if again, I'm not read in on it, but what's happening on these quote unquote banks and these run on these banks, it's purely out of fear. It's people sitting in that part of the world saying, I want to put my cash under my mattress. And I'll let Judah chime in on his thoughts.
Well,
I don't think they want to put their cash under their
Well,
mattress.
what do they do? What do they do when they take the cash out of the bank, Jerry?
I think they take the cash out of the bank and put it in another bank. I don't think these people are withdrawing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars and putting it in a bag under their mattress.
So that means these people have faith in the banking system, right?
Or they're putting it into the stock. Maybe you see a pop in the stock market with folks doing this.
Or in what we talk about on this show all the time, because I've been doing this long enough to know when the stock market and some of the things get a little goofy, people love to put money in dirt. So maybe
but show me where you can buy dirt.
Yeah, you can't. Well,
show me where you can put money into dirt.
The problem with that is if I have,
show me real estate to buy in Central Virginia.
I get it.
You just told me we're at there's 77 units for sale in Central Virginia.
Yeah.
77, Judah, in a 300,000 person market. There's 77 units to buy.
Yeah. So
how can they put their money into dirt here?
So what would happen? A potential thing is, again, a lot of this is exclusive to the out west. I didn't hear too many stuff on the East Coast.
Charles Schwab.
Okay, got it. So if I have several $100,000 in Charles Schwab that I want to pull out, I now can go in and buy some of this stuff for cash and be in a better position on it. So I can go in and start paying a little bit more. Maybe that's why I'm competing against 30 offers, and a good percentage of them are cash, right? Maybe all of a sudden this cash buyer comes in.
I think the cash buyer just doesn't want to pay. Someone who's got stacks of cash doesn't want to pay a 7% interest rate, and they just have stacks of cash.
That's
and I also think it's a sign of the wealth that's here.
Absolutely, but we're talking I'm just trying to take the theory of I'm pulling several X dollars out of Schwab, which, by the way, I have an account in, and Schwab, on that, full disclosure, out of that account, and go ahead and buy something because I'm saying, all right, dirt is more, or a home or property is more stable right now. I'm going to go in and buy that. Now the first-time home buyer is even in a worse position, right, that has to do that. So if we now have an increase of cash buyers going, okay, I'm pulling money out of this account, I'm going to go buy something. Hey, we just talked about it last Monday. City of Charlottesville, year over year was up 8%. Okay, I'll sit in there, I'll make 5 to 8% on the money. When that stuff gets itself fixed, I'll sell it, put the cash back in it.
I think the first-time home buyer, and Judah's he's got something he wants to offer here. I think the first-time home buyer has never been in a more difficult position to buy a house.
I would agree with that.
You got the home values that have gone up 25-30% since COVID in CAR. You got rates at 7% as opposed to 3 and change, and you got no inventory.
But they're still buying at the same rate. So
they first-time home buyers?
Oh yes, the ones we're working on.
Okay.
But here's the difference. They have a substantial amount of cash to bring to the table, right? And the first-time home buyer that has the ability, has a couple things here. The first-time home buyer that is confident that his income or her income is going to go up is in the market. The first-time home buyer that can put something more than zero down, right, is in the market. The first-time home buyer that understands, okay, I'm going to buy at 7, I'm going to pay X dollars. I know I'm increasing 5, 6%, 3%, whatever it is. I am going to refinance within 2 years or 3 years, or when Scott's going to go do that. Those buyers are in the market. The people that can't, hey, look, my salary is capped, right? I'm probably not going to make a substantial amount of money in the next couple of years. I only can put 0 down. right? Those are the folks that are not winning.
That's for a true first-time home buyer.
Well, first
Right
time,
there.
technically a first-time home buyer is somebody who hasn't bought a home in 3 years.
I totally get that. But somebody who has a deep cash reserve is not your traditional first-time home buyer.
But they're becoming.
They're becoming it because they've had no choice because they've been on the sidelines for so
And
long.
saved money.
They've lost so many deals that they've saved money.
Yeah, exactly. So now they're in a position to win. That's why.
That's not a traditional first-time home buyer.
So maybe the definition is starting to change.
The
And-
first-time home buyer now is now a geriatric first-time home buyer. The first-time home buyer now is now a middle-aged first-time home buyer, appreciating middle age.
We're next month. I think NAR is going to come out with its generational stats, which I'm excited to see. But you're spot on. You're going to find that there's a young millennial and an older millennial, right? You're going to start seeing that, and the Gen Zs are in it. But you're 100% right. I've said this before, and I'm probably going to get myself into continued trouble. And it's not going to be about interest rates. This is going to be more of a generational thing going forward.
What's on the brain over there, J-Dubs?
I mean, I know less about what effect this is having on housing and home buyers, but I think the big issue and what we hopefully what will eventually come to light is how many other banks have been making risky bets. And I know that with this particular bank, it wasn't necessarily with like mortgage-backed securities or any of that stuff. But I think from what I've read and seen, I think the problem is that a lot of banks have been have not taken any learning from the time of great unpleasantness.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
And they've continued making bad bets, and they've continued ignoring their risk assessment teams. And so, as the fallout of these banks start hitting, and as people get more scared about their money, it's not just going to be about people running the banks trying to get their money out. It's going to be that, and it's going to be banks finding out that with the rate hikes, I think they're seeing a lot of problems. A lot of problems are it's like when the ocean goes out, and you see what's lying hidden in the mud. And unfortunately, I think a lot of banks have been doing similar, if not exactly the same things as what happened with SVB.
Scott Thorpe watching the program. Many of those first-time home buyers, Jerry, are also facing student loan payments,
That's right.
Which are starting back up sooner than later.
That's right.
In a difficult economy, which is adding insult to injury. Scott
That's right.
Thorpe, in the real estate game himself.
Yeah, he's 100% right. It's interesting,
A realtor.
as the tide goes out, you find out who's not wearing a bathing suit, right? So it's an interesting thing on it. But you're 100% right. So it sounds like on the periphery, these banks were, historically, most of the people I ever known in the banking business, they were super conservative folks. I'm talking about financing, right? Never took risks, right? Were very kind of down the middle.
It's not the bankers I know.
Well, historically, I'm talking about over decades on that stuff. And it seems, because 2008, 2009 was exactly the same kind of thing, bankers or the banking institutions or business, for lack of a better term, were getting way outside of their traditional models. And it sounds like, if listening to Judah here, that is kind of what's going on here, that they were using their cash capital instead of making sure they had enough reserves to pay off, to pay their depositors, on that end of it, they were using the cash for other things. I think that's what I'm hearing. Is that sound about right?
Yeah, I think that
You
sounds
should
about right.
start researching this. This is important.
No, I know.
This is national news.
I
here.
was
This
busy.
is global news.
I was busy all weekend.
This is all over the news cycle here.
Thank you, Jerry, for pointing your finger at me.
Yeah,
know,
I mean,
sir.
this is important here.
I got
This
it.
is on the front page of every newspaper.
I got it, but I was also working all weekend, so helping people buy houses.
I get it.
But thank you.
News doesn't stop, though.
Thank you for
We all work.
Thank you for
We all
reminding.
work hard.
Thank you for reminding.
I hope it's not the beginning of, more to come. I know that's what you think. That's 100% what he thinks.
I think they've been teetering on the edge of a cliff for
100%.
for years, and they've had a lot of luck, and I think they've
huge
had,
luck.
Yeah.
Huge luck.
but it's not going to last forever.
He has straight up, Powell, tried to crash housing, and it has not happened.
Well, that's what I was thinking as you guys were talking here. That so is your bet that Powell is not going to do another 25%?
Powell has said he's going to raise rates again.
Yeah.
The question is how much.
Yeah, I don't
And
think it'll be 50. It'll be 25.
Hopefully, this keeps it from being too aggressive.
Yeah. I think it's 25. But if you take a look at the history of recessions, typically when recessions go in, mortgage rates drop. Right? If you just take a look at but there's a couple. I think there's one exception to it on that. But typically, the ones I've been involved with, when we start getting into a recession, mortgage rates drop. But we also typically get into recessions. We have unemployment climb, and that is not happening this go around, right? So we're not seeing. As a matter of fact, it's actually going in the opposite direction that I think Powell wants it to go, right? He wants two things. He wants the housing industry to slow down, which it clearly hasn't. We can prove that with the numbers today. And I think he wants unemployment to climb and try to cool the economy down. The question is will what we're watching on the screen and what we're talking about be another an item that will help, in Powell's opinion, to cool the market down?
Woody Fincham, investment banking should be separate from traditional banking. We allow institutions to do risky things, then we bail them out when they fail. The government is saying that this is not a bailout, but it is. We are lending money to cover the gap. Best comment I've read today from Woody Fincham.
Yeah.
110% agree with that, Woody.
So I'll make it personal. It's really was nice that they bailed out the banks in 2008 and 2009. I can assure you I got zero bailout and lost everything that we had. Zero. And we didn't cause this, right? They did. So I'm a little bit jaded about this whole bailing out of banks, to be honest with you.
Well, that's what's happening literally right now.
Yeah. And
Literally.
Sometimes, again, not knowing how this could impact the whole country or the world, but maybe they should be allowed to fail.
I 100% disagree with that.
Oh.
Good God.
No.
That could cause
No, I get
the
that.
collapse of America.
I get that. I started it off by saying this is a little personal to me, right? So there was all kinds of banks that got bailed out between 2008 and 2010.
If we lose the trust in the banking system,
Yeah, no, I get that.
the economy would
I get that. I get it.
absolutely collapse.
Again-
the government can't let these banks fail.
And I'm sure that they won't. But they'll do like what they did last time. They'll throw a bunch of regulators in their office, and it'll go from one extreme to another. But to Woody's point, these are investment banks, and these are not traditional banks that go ahead and lend a 30-year mortgage, which was Michael Plecker's point. So this is a little bit different. 2008, 2009. I know this because I went through it. There was local small banks that I borrowed money from that had regulators parked in their shops and controlling how they were doing it. So they bailed them out. They threw in regulators into it. I'm just talking on a personal level, and I'll talk about this till I'm blue in the face. It was absolutely the best thing that ever happened to me and my family. It was horrible. Everybody got paid. We made sure of that for that end of it. But I got to spend time with my family and my daughter, and it was a really good thing. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about it if I got the bailout. But I'll tell you, I would have preferred not to go through that two plus years of horror. And I don't have a huge love for banks, to be honest with you. When they start sending investigators to my kids at school and delivering warrants and debt and delivering paperwork because they effed up and didn't know how to run a business, and I'm paying for it. So I take this a little personal on that end of it.
Most folks don't have a lot of love for banks.
Yeah, I've got
Johnny Ornalis, hello. I mean, who likes banks?
I got a dear friend of mine.
They nickel and dime you.
I've got a dear friend of mine who runs a bank in New York, small little regional bank. And he tells me all the time, Keith, if you think we're the smartest people in the room, we're usually the dumbest people in the room. And I was like, what are you talking about? He says, think about it. We never look forward. We never see what's happened. Everything that we ever do is the rear view mirror on the back of it. We tend to make really bad decisions on stuff. It's just, this is a president of a pretty big regional bank will tell me we're usually the dumbest people in the room, and we never listen. We think we know everything better than everybody else, and there we're at. But I often talk about 2000 time of great unpleasantness in a positive tone. This is the first time you ever heard me talk about it in a negative tone. I was bitter towards the banks that they got their bailout and I lost everything. And that's okay. I didn't cause it. We didn't cause it. They did. They got the bailout and we didn't.
Multiple folks are saying on the feed, you got to bail the banks out or the economy is going to collapse. And I'm seeing you guys post this.
I don't disagree with that.
Spencer and Grayson and Thomas. Plecker, your boy over there, says kill the banks. Prevent more bad decisions in the future. Let the banks fail. No bailouts. He says it'll be devastating. But he says there's no risk for these institutions if they know they'll get money from my tax dollars so they can start back up again. Let them die.
So the question for you, that's not too surprising there. But is this all banks or just a specific type of bank, right? So if it's a specific type of bank, if it's an investment bank that they made bad investments, right, bad decisions with people's money, then they should be held accountable for that, not bailed out and said, okay, don't worry about it, you can do it again. The last one between 2008 and 2009, that's what I'm trying to tell you. This was, I won't use names, but these were, local, small banks, because I always borrow my money from local folks, they were caught up in that and had regulators in their banks. These are big investment banks. Don't know, look, losing tremendous amount of cash, I don't care who it is a bad thing. But I will read up on it, Jerry. Thank you for the reminder. I've just been a little busy.
Oh, absolutely. Here to help. Viewers and listeners, your thoughts, put them in the feed. A lot of comments here. Mayor of McIntyre has this. A lot of the bankers when I was young were children of the Great Depression.
There you go.
Bankers back in the days were tighter than bark on a tree.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Scott Thorpe, commercial real estate, says an interesting book on this subject is titled The Creature from Jekyll Island. And chapter is titled The Name of the Game is Bailout. Book is The History of the Federal Reserve. Thank you, Scott Thorpe. Scott, I like when you watch the program, and I've really appreciated your comments of late. They've had really good insight and intel on stuff that's coming and going locally, especially commercial real estate. So thank you for that, Scott Thorpe.
So it's interesting, Scott. So I do about $5 to $20 million of commercial a year around different parts of the state. Do you think, Scott, what's happening on this screen and what Jerry's talking about is going to have more of an impact on the commercial market than the residential?
I don't think you want his answer on that.
I'm sorry?
I don't think you want his answer
No,
on
well,
that.
If he doesn't want to answer, he doesn't need to answer it.
I think he would say all of the above.
But I think it's going to impact the commercial more than the residential.
Kevin Higgins, SVB, Silicon Valley Bank execs, dumped shares and took bonuses right before regulators took over. The real emphasis should be on these crooks and how the government deals with them. This is just not a good look for finance.
So is that factually correct? I read a little bit about that. You know, I've been reading headlines on this over the weekend as I was working. Is that actually true that they actually dumped stock before this happened? Is that factually correct?
The execs took bonuses. I do know that.
Okay.
Scott Moore says, I think this is all oversold. We'll see what the week brings. So he's staying with the bullish narrative of let's stay positive here.
Well, the question for Scott is much like what Michael Plecker was saying, you know, is there a division between this type of banking and the banking that people use to get their 30-year mortgages? I think the answer to that is yes, but I'd prefer to have Scott chime in on that and tell me that is there a division?
These banks are not the banks that are giving people mortgages.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're not giving people mortgages. But as Judah's identified, it could be a tale of banking practices and strategies utilized by other banks. That's what he's saying.
But if it's in the investment world, not the mortgage world, right? So if it's in the mortgage, if it migrates from that into the mortgage, you disagree with that?
I'm just not sure what you're saying.
So what I'm trying to say is we're talking about investment banks that are having the struggle right now. It's not banks that give mortgages, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we cover that.
I got it.
Yeah.
So the question is the flu that's in the investment bank that's going on, that's doing this right now, is it migrating? Is it jumping over from investment into mortgage? If that happens, all the stuff that we're holding in our hands about housing, we've talked about this all the time about could we ever have an 08 and an 0 over again? So if this flu we're talking about, or this disease that these investment banks have right now migrates over to the 30-year mortgage, that could happen. That, you know, you could see a repeat because, and I just don't think that's going to happen because I think the regulators are so heavily into the mortgage side of the house. Maybe not so much on the investment side of the house. I don't know much about it, but it feels like that's the case.
Kevin Higgins shares a link from Fortune, the media publication, that shows that reports Silicon Valley Bank Chief Executive Officer Greg Becker sold $3.6 million of company stock under a trading plan less than 2 weeks before the firm disclosed extensive losses that led to its failure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just...
Well, that man...
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah,
Appreciate that, Higgins.
Yeah, so that's just wrong, right? Because you damn well know he knew about that long before that. This wasn't something that just popped up overnight. Right? Yeah. So, yeah, that's not a bonus. That is, the ship is sinking, I'm selling my stock, and here's my, what do they call that parachute? Golden parachute, or whatever it is.
The question is, how does this impact housing? Because
Well,
it's a real
that's the
estate
point.
show. And does this get folks more likely to put homes on the market? Our problem right now is we have no inventory to sell. We have 77 units on the market in a 300,000 person Central Virginia region. This time last year, we had 137 homes on the market.
Yeah,
So we are down, 60 units compared to this time last year. That's a huge amount.
we're down 74% from 2022 to 2023. We're down 74% of inventory. So the again, in my infantile way of trying to explain this, if this stays in the envelope of investment banking, no. If it migrates, whatever this flu, whatever this disease that is going on in the investment side of the house, migrates its way into the traditional to mortgage side of the house, it's going to have a huge impact on real estate. I just think that there are so many balances, checks and balances that put in since 2008, 2000. Just think about the appraisal process, difference between 2008 to time. Woody will chime in on it. It's a whole different world on top of that. And the regulatory, and it's much harder to borrow money, and your credit score has to be good. Again, in 2004, 5, and 6, this cup of coffee I drink could have bought a $500,000 house, right? So all that is gone. So maybe what's going on here is the investment side. Nobody was keeping an eye, you know. They kind of, you know, the fox was in the hen house there, and nobody was watching the hen house. And on the mortgage side of it, there's definitively everybody's making sure that fox stays out of there. So the only impact I think it's going to have is I think people that are if the depositors or the investors, because that's what this is made whole, they're going to start buying houses, and that's going to make the inventory even tighter and make this competition for homes even harder. Because that's what I would be doing. If I had a ton of money in that thing and I wanted to get it out, I'd put it in dirt.
Robert Jerome watching the program. He's watching in the Georgetown area of Washington, D.C.
Was there a couple weeks ago.
Went to school with this guy. He works in finance. One of the smart guys from the fraternity. He says if any of the folks watching this program thinks that a headline like banks closing or being shut down is not going to impact the American economy and housing, then you guys are just crazy. This is everywhere on the news right now, and there are more banks to close to come.
So are they investment banks or are they mortgage banks?
Follow-up question for you right there. Let us know your answer there.
Yeah. So,
This is a senior VP.
Yeah. And again, if it's in the investment side of the house, the average buyer, particularly first-time home buyer, has very little money tied up into the investment side of the house. Their equity is usually in the real estate. And he might be spot on, right? We just don't know. And that's the comment that I'm making is if this disease, if this flu that's on this side of the house migrates it to the other side of the house, that's fine. And I believe it was Woody that meant, and I never quite understood why they allowed regular traditional banks that deal with the 30-year mortgage to get into the investment world. That's where the connection's going to happen on it. But again, way out of my pay grade. I know housing pretty well, and you know something like this could impact it. I think we need to see how the week goes and see if this stuff starts migrating into, you know, Scott Morris telling my client, I'm sorry, but we can't do any more mortgages.
Woody Fincham, look at the depositors that made up SVB. 3% are below the FDIC threshold of $250K. That means 97% of the depositors were out anything above that. This is a Band-Aid to help the very wealthy with money in the bank.
There you go. So that's kind of to my point. The average buyer isn't that person.
I don't think the average buyer has $250,000 cash sitting in a Silicon Valley bank. No.
No, I'll tell. But
I don't think the average buyer does.
It's funny you should say that. I just was thinking of the couple of sales we did this week, and I really didn't think about this until you just said that. The 2 cash sales that we did this week pulled their money out of the stock market to buy it.
Bill McChesney says President Joe Biden is talking about this literally right now.
Yeah, I see it. I see it over there.
Literally, Joe Biden is talking about this right now. And there you see the headline, regional bank stocks crater while the Fed outlook on rates is on screen.
Yep. Yeah, so, you know, the one thing that is for sure, and to the comment to one of your fraternity brothers.
He lives on the Hill.
Yeah, so everything is connected in today's world. So at some point, I'm sure this is going to connect to it. But as it stands at the moment, if it's impacting the 30-year mortgage world, well, I'm just curious. Does anybody know what the 10-year yield is? It's down to 3.
Woody Fincham, I 100% agree with the comment that you just made.
The 10-year yield is down to 3.49.
This is what Woody has said. This is what I think is going to happen as well. Woody Fincham, he says the media will jump on this like stink on a pig. Hyperbole and loose journalistic ethics will make normal depositors react negatively. Systematic fear makes ratings go up.
Sure.
That's exactly what's happening right now. I mean, and Woody, you know we have the TV in the studio. It has been on constantly. The president is talking about this right now. 100% agree with this. Judah, anything you want to add to this before we get to some additional comments? Jason Howard, thank you for leaving comments on the show as well, the King of Rio.
Yeah, so the 10-year Treasury is down to 3.48.
J-Dubs. Keith, thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's what I can tell you. What I don't want to do is add uneducated comments or uninformed comments to what's going on the TV screen over that way. So what I do know is that at the moment, the 10-year Treasury is going down, which means interest rates are going down, right? Which means that if this segregation happens, that's a poor choice of words, but if there's a division between the 30-year and this, there's just so many buyers in the buyer pool. Putting a house on the market now and buying is still the best time to do it. Now, if there's some linkage there that I'm unaware of, which clearly outside of my pay grade here, and it migrates into that, then it could have an impact on housing. But at the moment, I don't see that. I don't see what's on that screen impacting the depth of buyers at the moment. And somebody might think I'm crazy. I think I was crazy. I could be crazy, but I'm just relying on 35 years of vibe and doing this. I just don't see that happening. I can tell you, 08 and 09, we all knew was coming. To Judah's point, there is something coming, right?
We all been saying that.
And I tell this story all the time. When I had lenders walk in my office and say, "Hey, I heard you're doing a $10 million project," and go ahead and offer me negative interest, meaning they were going to pay me to borrow money, I knew we were in a world of you-know-what. So is this segregated to the investment side of the house, not the mortgage side of the house? And if that's the case, then I think a lot of people are going to get hurt on it. I think people are going to pull their money out and stop buying dirt. Is what I really think is going to happen.
I just don't see that happening, my friend.
Well,
there's not anything to buy.
no, there is something to buy. The problem is there's 76, 65, whichever math you want to use.
Yeah.
But if I just pulled a couple, 300, 400, whatever it is, out of the stock market, I can overpay for something right now just to park my cash somewhere, which now impacts this first-time home buyer or the rest of the market that is doing it for family reasons or for one of the retirement, new kids, that kind of thing. So it could impact it. It could impact it, and I've seen that happen over years. Except 2008, 2009, it was the other way around.
Plucker says the 30-year hit 7.25 last week. Just wanted to give you a change of topic because you owe me a bottle of Woodford Reserve.
He's right. I do owe him. Write this down. Pay Plucker.
Woodford Reserve.
Woodford Reserve.
One of the Shenandoah Valley's finest backstops.
Woodford Reserve. Notes taken. Yeah. So how about we switch to basketball? How about that?
We can switch to anything you want.
Yeah. It's out of my pay grade. We'll have to keep a close eye on it. I will read up on it. I will tell you this weekend, I wrote more contracts and got accepted this weekend than I've had in very, very long time.
That's great.
So that's a positive sign. So let's kind of talk into that.
How many contracts did you write this weekend?
Well, we put one on, listed and sold it in 24 hours. 1, 2, 4.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's legit.
4, yeah.
Congratulations.
One of them, I'm excited about our show on the 22nd, where we can start helping people learn how to navigate this system and navigate the win today kind of thing. I was hoping to do a live, come up with a name for it, but I'm going to call it Win Today for the moment, from a buyer's perspective and a seller's perspective on that end of it. 107, by the way. We started at 105 in pending. Now I'm up to 107. And new active dropped 2, which was probably the 2 that went pending. So just a matter of the show, we jumped from 105 pending to 107 down there. So people are buying.
People are buying homes, man.
Yeah.
I did see that, Bill, that Biden is blaming it on the Donald Trump rollback of his term. What's happening with banking right now.
Rollback of the banking regulations?
Yeah, but the Obama-Biden administration, this is what Biden is saying right now, had much more strict banking regulation in play, And now Biden is saying Trump rolled back that regulation. And he's speaking right now.
Yeah.
How about some closing thoughts for the viewers and listeners?
And you know, we don't divisive politics, we don't point fingers. But he also had 2 years to fix that, and he hasn't done it yet.
Yeah.
Could have reversed that day one, right? Because it was a presidential starts from the top down, so he could have did that, and he didn't for whatever reason on that end of it. Yeah. So Wednesday we're going to bring Scott in. Obviously, we'll probably continue to talk
I would
about
think this is going to be the topic.
Yeah, we'll continue to talk about this.
We're not going to get to all the comments, guys, on the banks right today. I'm sorry.
So Friday, it's just Jerry and I again. I'm working on. I've got a bunch of folks that are running for office slated for April on it. So we're just kind of filling out the rest of the month with some Batman and Robin, and we're going to be going back pretty hard the end of this month and definitely in April, where we're going to be bringing in folks that are running at the state level and at the local level and start going into this coffee with the candidates kind of thing on that end of it. Actually got some state level, enrichment level real estate association members wanting to come on the show, so we're working through that. So I've just been really looking forward these last couple of shows, just you and I doing this, right?
I love it.
This is not what we expect. This is not what I expected to talk about today, but I'm glad that we did, though.
I certainly thought this was going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all over the global news.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I was busy trying to make magic for people and didn't get a chance to read up on it, but I will. I got plenty of time to do that.
I appreciate the Wickhour perspective today, Judah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Judah.
Keith, the sizzle reel was excellent. Are we going to upload this to realtalkwithkeithsmith.com?
No. I didn't have time to do that. What does the B stand for?
Benjamin.
Benjamin. I did not know that.
Yeah, Benjamin.
How many years we've known each other? Did not know that your middle name was Benjamin. My middle name is Brian, so I was wondering if it was the same.
Yeah.
Biblical reference.
I got
Yeah.
two of the 12 tribes of Israel.
There you go.
Very nicely done
Love
there,
it.
Judah Wickhour.
Love it. A little bit of religion. We did a bunch of banking news and wrapped it up with a religion history religion 101.
I Love Sivo show, guys, is up in 1 hour. We'll see if we can get to some of the comments we didn't get to today on that show, and we're looking forward to connecting with you. The show is archived on realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. We encourage you to click the Partners tab, where you will find the list of trusted advisors that you can count on to get to the closing table. The show is presented by Yes Realty Partners. Keith Smith, Jonas Smith, and their team will help you guys buy the home of your dreams. Yes Realty Partners. For Keith Smith, Judah Wickhour, my name is Jerry Miller. Take care. All right, gentlemen, good work. A lot of comments on the banks.
Oh, I'm sure.